Have you ever wondered if you are wasting leads? You're spending a lot of time, money, effort into your marketing dollars, the time that you have with your team members, that sort of thing, and just doing a lot of grinding, talking to a lot of people on the phone and that sort of thing, and then those leads are just going to waste. Have you ever wondered about that? Because there's a high chance, there's a very high possibility that you are spending a lot of time, effort, and money and actually wasting leads and losing a lot of money or potential income that could come in from those leads that you are wasting all of your resources on. Today, we got my good friend Bob Lachance on the line. Runs a great real estate investing business out of Connecticut, but also has an organization called REVA Global that does staffing for real estate investors. So a lot of times, if you need a lead manager, if you need somebody to help run your marketing campaigns, that sort of thing, those are the type of people that Bob has on the REVA Global side as a virtual assistant to be able to help you in your business. Today, we talk about how he had discovered some wastefulness in the leads that he was generating, meaning follow-up. Like, one of the biggest things that you can do to lose leads is to not follow up with those leads in the proper manner. Maybe you've called them one or two times back after your initial phone call, but is that enough? Is that the way to get them to the door? Because we know the whole process of 7 touches or whatever it is to convert a lead. But what if it's beyond that? What if there's more to it than just that? And today we talk about that, and Bob goes through a really detailed story about how he ran his business, was losing a lot of leads, and then was able to leverage his team to help build that follow-up process back up and then bring those leads that he thought were all gone, like they were just completely done for, and maybe even bring in some deals off of those. So today we talk about that kind of thing. It's going to be a very good episode, a lot of insight, a lot of really great stories to tell. And also, we're going to be diving into how you can leverage virtual assistants in your organization to help your marketing efforts, along with the way that it spills into your sales as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. So make sure to take notes. And here's my good friend, Bob Lachance. All right, what's up, guys? Josh Feller here, back with the REI Marketing Weekly. And I'm excited to bring to you my very good friend, longtime friend. I've known Bob for a really long time, and Adam as well. But Adam, we'll get him on at a later date. But you're gonna do just fine for today. We don't need Adam, but I got my good friend Bob Lachance out of the Northeast up there in Connecticut, right?
Connecticut it is.
Yeah, for sure. So I made the brief introduction to you guys for Bob, so we're gonna hop right on into it. A lot of what we're gonna be talking about is the premise of Bob has a organization called REVA Global. Made the introduction to you guys there, but a lot of problems I hear in the marketing world nowadays is all centered around staffing. It's getting the right people in the right seats. And obviously, from a business perspective, that's a really big deal as well. Not just marketing, but it obviously is a really big deal in marketing. And normally my 3 reasons why marketing fails in any way, shape, or form is direction, expectations, and number 3, and the biggest one, is personnel. So we're going to talk about this a little bit, but Bob also has a active real estate investing business, which I think it's extremely valuable because now you get to actually test what you guys are bringing into the market and then roll that out to the rest of the world and what they have going on. So, Bob, obviously one good place to start would be how you leverage in today's markets. Now that, things have shifted so much in the world of marketing over the last few years, cold calling and text blasting are all but gone away, and for the most part. And so it's just left a lot to what do we do in our marketing? Is it just direct mail? Is it just PPC and ads and stuff like that? But from your perspective, leveraging virtual assistants, how are you doing that in today's market for your marketing?
We're still doing cold calling, and we are still doing texting. We also do direct mail. We do, pay per lead as well, right? You have all of Facebook's leads that come in because there's still a lot of pre-screening you need to do to get those things to fruition.
Sure.
Right. So we still do direct to consumer marketing, right? Because that for us is very, very inexpensive compared to, like we just talked about, direct mail or even online lead generation. I mean, you look at TV, you look at radio, the cost of that is really, really high for especially small entrepreneurs like real estate investors. I know there's all levels of real estate investors. We're part of a lot of the same masterminds, and there's some real estate investors that can't afford, the $100,000 a month budget, but a lot of us, a lot of individuals out there cannot.
Yep, for sure. So somebody that is obviously hiring in-house, like a stateside employee, is completely different to run your marketing than somebody that's a virtual assistant. I want to lead back into that just to, help with kind of bridging the gap between your active real estate investing business and REVA Global and what you're leveraging it for. What are some of the key things when hiring an overseas team member for your marketing department to help run marketing? Obviously, like, I don't know if it's this situation of like you have your cold callers that are out of the States on the phone with sellers. Like, what does that look like?
So I'll give you exactly how we do it. We have a team of virtual assistants in the Philippines, just outbound cold calling and outbound testing. Now, here's the difference, right? Well, the only thing that I want is somebody to pre-screen that lead, someone to raise their hand and say, yes, I am willing to sell this property for whatever amount it is. Doesn't matter. So once that lead comes in, that's just, think about that. That's a direct to seller lead where somebody raises their hand. Mm-hmm. That's all the motivation we want. Now we have our in-house team in Cheshire, Connecticut, that then calls them back, because now it's a warm lead. It's not cold anymore. It's somebody that says, yes, I'm willing to sell my house. So it's very, very different. We have, so I'll lay out the process very simply. We pull a list. Right now we use a couple different list providers. We get them skip traced. We scrub the skip trace list. We put them in the dialer and we put them in our text blasting tool. And we have set process that we train our virtual assistants. We work with attorneys on scripting and everything. We have our VAs then outbound call, and same thing with the text, right? So we have it very, very strategic, and we train them exact way. We also have a manager that oversees them to make sure everything's done right. So that's in essence your marketing manager, if you will. So you have your VA sending all the numbers or sending the messages. And then when they get a positive response, they fill out a form. It gets sent right back into our database. We use Podio. And then our sales team starts calling them and then turning it into, obviously, profit, if you will. And then we have, at the end of the day, very, very important. So if we're talking about marketing manager, at the end of the day, they send an end-of-day report with all the numbers you're talking about. How many calls they made, how many connects they made, how many, we call them ITSs, how many interested to sells that came in. And you have that manager that will also send you a weekly report. So it's very, very important, very streamlined.
Yeah, for sure. So if I heard you right, you are treating your overseas team members, those are the lead managers per se, that get somebody raise their hand, like you said specifically. At that point, they're handing it off to somebody that's local in your office that's taking those calls. And essentially, that's the acquisitions manager or your acquisitions person that's going to close the deal. Is that
correct? And there's some small business owners that they're the acquisition, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So they do their own acquisition, they do their own dispo until they build up. So it's the same exact concept. We just built their company up. We have, Adam, obviously, the inner workings of us. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're looking to get up to 8. We're at 6 acquisition guys in-house right now. So we're looking to get to 8 by the end of the year. That's what we want to be. I know Adam will tell you he wants 10 to 20, but our main goal is to get 8 very good acquisition individuals. We also have virtual assistants that work with our acquisition team to do all the admin stuff that, there's a lot of crap that you want off your plate. We also have that.
Yeah, for sure. What does the process look like from when, your team member gets a hold of me, your lead manager gets a hold of me, I raise my hand and say, yeah, I'm interested. So what's the next step? Is it a live transfer? Like, what's the next step for that?
We just have them fill out a form and it goes right into Podio. So our CRM is Podio, and then it dings. It goes to the top of the list of where those leads are. So we get right now, we get a little over, probably about 60 to 70 leads per week coming in. And so our sales team will sift through all those. And again, our goal, though, is in the follow-up. I mean, you know that even in your business and everyone's business, there's more money in the follow-up. So I would recommend or caution, I should say, anyone listening to this to say, well, I need all these new leads. If you have leads in your database, I promise you, I've been doing this for 20 years. I promise you that your database has way more gold than the new leads that you think are low-hanging fruit.
So do you have your lead managers that are on that follow-up? The lead managers are in charge of the follow-up, or does it depend on, so of course, somebody raised their hand. They're not always going to necessarily answer the call from the acquisitions manager the first time that the acquisitions person calls that lead that's raised their hand. Do you have the lead manager follow up with that person, or do you have the acquisitions person following up with that person?
So we have
there's 2 trains of thoughts there. So
correct. We have one being that's automated calls all the time. We also have our newer reps that also call follow-up. Because think about this. I mean, how many people are answering at different times? So we have reps just continue to call, continue to call, continue to call. And we do something unique. The newer reps also partner with the senior reps as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. And then, well, yeah, that's good. So here's the thing. It's like I heard it like multiple. So I told you I was at a mastermind, same mastermind we're a part of. And I heard multiple times in multiple rooms, people like just, they're getting burned out. Their acquisitions people are, because there's no like lead manager. Like they have closers for the acquisitions people, but like for me, I would be, if I'm on a sales team, I'm a closer. I'm not a follow-up person in any way, shape, or form. So it's great to have, that type of person that's overseas that is willing to do that type of follow-up work, and then because again, you said it, you hit the nail on the head. Most of the gold is in follow-up. It's not just new leads.
There's burnout. I mean, you nailed that 100%. I mean, when I first got in here 20 years ago, I door knocked every day from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then I would go home and I would skip trace that same list, and I was doing pre-foreclosures. So I'd skip trace. And back in the day, I had to go to 411.com. They didn't have the tools that we had right now, right?
Yeah.
Yellow pages back in the day. And then I would call till about 7:30 at night every single night. And then by the time, you fast forward a year, I was fired up when I first jumped into the business, but I was beat up. So that's when I learned how to pull myself out and put somebody in. Nowadays, you don't even have to do that, because you could implement either a virtual assistant or someone else you could bring on in your office, literally sitting right next to you if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So pivoting just a little bit. So you've been around for quite a while, and you've seen a lot of different things shake out in terms of not just real estate, but also, of course, staffing and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. In the marketing world, you could relate it to specifically the real estate marketing world. In the last several years, what's changed that has maybe shaken a lot of people, maybe they're customers of REVA, and maybe they were using a team member to do X, Y, and Z in 2019, and now that same team member that's with them is doing something different in 2024. What are some of the big changes in marketing that you've seen over the past couple of years?
Well, it's funny. So it's gone, you used to do door-to-door back in the day. Then it changed to online. Now it's direct to seller. So it's something that's, I can't say it really changed, but that has proven to be something that's very important. We talk about that all the time. You have to stick with more than one marketing channel. You have to do a bunch of things. Like you have an incredible product that brands, right? You have branding, marketing. Everyone has to have branding. If you don't have your name out there, you don't have your business out there, people aren't going to know who you are. We have sellers come to us all the time. I mean, we work together. People come to us all the time and they say, hey, I saw your video for credibility, right? They'll look at, you'll get a bunch of leads in with your company name on. They're like, let me make sure this company is actually legit.
Yeah.
So then obviously they're going to be looking at your website. They're going to be Googling your name. They're going to be doing all that. So all that content that is put out there is extremely important. All on what? LinkedIn. You got Instagram, obviously Facebook. I don't know if TikTok's going to be here within another year. Who knows? But you got to put it out there anyway right now, because you still get business. I was just on a mastermind. I think you're part of that one as well, where I forgot the gentleman who was speaking. I think it was, can't remember his name. Francis. First name was Francis, but he was talking about, so he's talking about how they're still driving in leads in the coaching world on TikTok. I don't personally use TikTok that much. I really don't, because I don't like going in the rabbit holes when I go on my phone, because I'm yelling at my kids all the time. So get that phone down.
Lead by example, Bob.
That's it. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. So it's very, very important. So I would just say we always have to have multiple channels, and they have to be running at the same time. And don't be a one-trick pony with just one marketing channel, because once that turns off, you're going to be out of business for a certain amount of time until you pick that up.
So let's say, for example, as a great conversation, let's say, for example, that somebody is doing direct mail. They're heavy in that. They've been doing it for a while. So they've got all the nuances down, the kind of process works for them and that sort of thing. And they have been thinking about what to start next. I think a big question in everybody's mind would be, what do I do next? Do I need to start doing cold calling? Do I need to start doing PPC and SEO, or do I need to start doing social? Like, what's your advice to somebody that needs to start up a different channel because maybe they've mastered one and now they need to open up another one? What direction would you send them into?
I would say look at your budget first. right? And because if you're making X amount of money, take 10% of your budget that you're making, your wholesale, let's say your direct mail budget is, I don't know, I'm making this number up, $20,000, but you're making $100,000, right? So take some of that $80,000 profit and put it into another channel. I don't care, take 5%, doesn't matter. Yeah. Take 5% of $80,000 is what? $4,000? Is that right? I don't know. Is it? Yeah, I'll go with that. Someone's been listening and be like, hey, how dumb are you guys? You guys don't know.
No, yeah. But we're marketers.
So my point is take 5-10% of that and put it into that other channel. I would look at, for me personally, the most inexpensive right now today. That couldn't change tomorrow. But text messaging is very, very simple. You have a text platform. You get the list. You have a virtual assistant do all the work and drive the leads. For us, it's very, very profitable still today. And then I would get into cold calling after that. So I would look at those 3 channels, and always in the back of your mind, because we're just starting this right now. I mean, again, I've been in business for a long time. We're just starting PPC right now today with the thought process that possibly one of those channels will be gone, in the near future.
Yeah, or it'll be harder to build a presence in the future,
right,
even if it's still around. It's you were mentioning TikTok. It's the exact same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It started TikTok channel in 2020, stayed consistent with it for one video a day for a year. You'd be at 1 million followers right now. Anybody, regardless of what industry you're in, what type of videos you're putting out, it was just that there's so much opportunity on TikTok, and now it's saturated, and now it's it's one of those things where it's a ride the wave situation. So
some of the sorry I'm interrupted, but some of the feedback I want to give it. Don't feel like the sky is falling, because there's always a way to get to potential sellers.
Yeah.
It's very important, because same thing happened back 20 years ago. It's like, well, there was something that just changed where the title companies just changed their policy, so now we can't do business a certain way. There's always a way to change your strategy in business. It's just trust me on that, because I've gone through a lot of these ups and downs. I mean, it's just part of the game, and always stay connected, obviously, to this podcast and the different networks that you're part of to understand and always be ahead of that curve. But do know the real estate investing is always going to be here, and don't feel like the sky is falling because you hear one guru that's trying to sell something. Because when you see something on TikTok or Instagram and someone's passionate, adamant about it, always look at what they're trying to sell. That's a very important point that, I hear the newer individuals come to us, oh, well, this is what's going to happen. I'm like, calm down. I mean, I just started 50 this year, so I'm a lot less, emotional when it comes to it. I'm like, all right, well, ask a couple of questions. Ask why, and then really follow the money and follow, wherever their funnel is or their loophole is, follow that, and you'll see why that message is there.
Like that. Yeah, it's a good piece of advice. I do that subconsciously. Like, I'm a marketer, so I do a lot of, marketing hacks.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. But you're right. So like a great example, as you were talking about that, I'm thinking like, this podcast has really started back up. We're only a couple episodes back into it. We had about 150 episodes tracking back into late 2019, going all the way into 2022. And I look back at some of the episodes that we had put out, and a lot of the topics are still relevant because it hasn't changed a whole, like not everything has changed. Interrupting this podcast episode to tell you guys that this podcast is managed and produced by Color Media Productions. Yes, shameless plug, that's my company. However, we do this for a lot of other people as well. Most people that we work with are in the real estate investing space. So if you're listening to this podcast specifically, you probably are a real estate investor, given it's called the REI Marketing Weekly. If you're somebody that either wants to start a podcast or you have one going and it's becoming a little bit of a hassle, you're looking to transition to somebody that works a little bit better with a fluid motion in terms of you get the recordings done and then they do everything else. Well, that's what we do. We do fully managed podcasts from start to finish, video, audio, show noting, the graphics, publishing, everything that goes into it. It's a full service business that we run here in a service for you as a real estate investor if you are running a podcast. Additionally, we also do social media and YouTube management as well. So all of that being on the organic side, if you are interested in learning more about working with us and just recording content with guidance and strategy set by myself personally, and then not doing anything else after that, where we're taking care of everything from start to finish, then make sure you go check us out at colormedia.com, CULLER media.com. hit us up there and we can learn more about working together, hop on a phone call and see what we could do for you. Now back to the episode. Right. But there's some things I look at, I'm like, yeah, that's not relevant anymore. And so you really have to stay on top of your game. And that's part of marketing as a whole. Like circling this back around to marketing is that you really have to be on the lookout. You need to be in the watchtower seeing what's coming down the pipe. But then also, like, a great way that I always tell people is analyze your competition and see what they're doing. Not to mimic exactly what they're doing and be a copycat, that sort of thing. But if they're doing something and maybe it's working, or maybe you're in a mastermind and somebody else is doing something, that it's a great way to kind of like be in that watchtower and see what's coming down the pipe, with the exception, this is what I'm kind of tailing this off at, is not doing too many marketing channels, but not doing just one. You need to add on one or two at a time. Like you just mentioned, you're adding on, what was it, PPC and SEO, I think is what you said. Yep. My assumption is that's the only thing you're currently implementing that's new right now, and then maybe in the future you might do something else. Like, is that a good pace to go at?
That's it. Yeah. So we got, like we talked, we have direct mail, we have texting, calling. Now we're going to be doing PPC. We could always jump into, think about that. We could always jump into TV or radio, but there's no reason for us right now because we do have too many leads for the acquisition individuals that we have right now. So and that's very, very important because
a lot of people have gone broke over marketing and didn't have the back end to be able to support it. Yeah.
Correct. That's very important because for those of you listen that do have acquisition peeps, make sure that you don't get into, well, the leads aren't good enough. Bullshit. It's not right. The leads are there. They're good enough. They have to work those leads. Very important. I'll tell you, I would not have said this when I first started back in 2004, right? I would say, oh, those leads aren't good. But now that I understand that if you have the right funnel and the leads are coming in that are already pre-screened, right? Direct mail is a great lead. That's in essence because that's inbound. You sell a piece of mail, they're calling in for a reason. If I'm going direct to a seller and somebody pre-screens them and sends it to me, that's a good lead, right? So you got to look at, and always tweak your script. Since we're talking about marketing, we work with our virtual assistant team every day. Every time our acquisition team gets a lead that we want to say, all right, hey, we're seeing a trend here. Then we'll go back to the team to tweak our script a little bit. Maybe we're seeing the price is too far away from Zillow, right? So now we're going to tweak our script a little bit. Whatever that lead is, because think about this, we could change our strategy to buy and hold. Now we can buy a little higher, closer to fair market value, rather than wholesale or novation, because your marketing is tied to your exit strategy as well.
Right. Yeah. No, that's extremely important. I think a lot of people, that's a really good takeaway because a lot of people really don't truly go back into their scripts, or you use scripts. It's also if you're doing text blasting or any kind of media or marketing that has verbiage on it, and if you're not tweaking that message according to what your exit strategy is, that can really like kick you in the ass a little bit sometimes because you're not delivering a message in your marketing according to your business model at that point. And that can be really hard, especially if you change, like you mentioned novations. Novations are, the hot new thing. So if you're marketing still specifically for wholesaling, then, it's just going to be so much different. So,
well, in wholesale, think about that, because you could buy it at a different margin. If you only wholesale, you have to buy it at a, 50, 60, 70 cents on a dollar. Novations, you could buy it a little higher. So, I think that's very, very important. And getting back to lead quality, it's important if whoever's listening to this, if you're the one doing the acquisition, look at the quality of the lead. You'll know when you call them back what they say. That's going to give you an indication what the quality of leads are coming in, because you hear different types of people say, well, this lead source isn't good. I don't necessarily believe that, because the individual that's saying that may not be trained, right? Because we invest a lot of money on training. We have three different trainers that train us in our office consistently. So I'll tell you, if I looked at our business my real estate business 5 years ago, I would say, oh, the leads aren't good. Now we look at them today, I'm like, oh my, you know how much money we lost because we're not trained properly? So again, you look at marketing is important, but we also need to be trained on what we're doing with all of those marketing leads as well. So it's not one. It's not one or the other. It's both. You have to look at this as a business owner, not just a single-minded. Because we're in a society where people blame too much. They don't take responsibility for their own, let's say, actions or what their business is doing. So that's again
Great.
More feedback.
Yeah, no, for sure. So one thing I want to go back to real quick that you mentioned, this might be a difficult question to answer like directly because it may be subjective, but just answer as best you can. When you mention the quality of leads, is there a measurement that you give or some sort of like a temperature gauge that you guys go through to determine if this lead is cold? Obviously, if they give you an FU and the middle finger, that might be a cold lead at that point. Or is there any kind of triggers that move them in from one stage to the next?
Yeah, typically we look at a Zillow price. So every time, like, hey, are you willing to take X amount of money off? So typically it's about $30,000 in that Zillow number is what we're looking for.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what price it is because we could always, that's what we're looking for. We're gauging that. 'Cause to us, that's, if you look at it, sometimes Zillow's off.
Yeah.
And, as Zillow moves and there's less inventory out there, we could then have our acquisition guys get on the phone and negotiate them down from there. So we're just looking for something. So you could look at $20,000 to $30,000 off of Zillow as the gauge. And again, I'm just giving you kind of a, we've gone all over because we've gone all the way up to like 90% of Zillow. So we've gone everywhere. We've tested it to where once those leads go to our acquisition team, what they can do at that point.
Interesting. No, that's good. That's good feedback. I like that a lot. That answered my question well, because I think a lot of people think it's, you just got a cold lead, you got a warm lead, and you got a hot lead. But sometimes there's in-betweens in all of those because not everybody's situation, obviously not everybody's motivation is going to be the same, and their timeline is not going to be even close to the next lead that you talk to and that sort of thing. So that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, to me, that's just more of like knowing the business and your lead managers actually knowing their job well and being able to kind of gauge that based off of the conversation that they're having instead of just like blanket statements that are being told throughout, the conversation with them.
And again, we're doing novation, so we could go a little higher and then negotiate down. So it's different than, if you're just a wholesaler out there, that's why a lot of wholesalers are struggling because they haven't taken the time or wanted to learn how to do another exit strategy. Yeah. Right. Because you have to buy it here. And think about that. If you have a wholesale buyers list, they're bringing their number down too. So it's just really, you got to look at the big picture of it and always learn new strategies and what to do. When I first got in this business, I was just a short sale investor. Or my first deal I actually did a rehab. I thought I was a rehabber. Then I, Pat Precourt, myself, or business partners at that point, and that's all we did is short sales. And I knew nothing about really wholesaling back in the day, which I would have loved to go back and be like, could you imagine if I actually wholesaled and also buying held properties? I look at 20 years later, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Yeah. But it's real estate investing. You got to learn every day.
Yeah, for sure. So the last thing I kind of want to go into, this has all been fantastic conversation, but the last thing I really want to go into is circling back around to staffing. I really think that leveraging, so I personally have virtual assistants that are on my team, and all of them have their own functions and their specific jobs and duties and tasks that they're supposed to accomplish on a daily basis, whatever. So I kind of know the way like I work within like operating my team from that perspective. But I think a lot of people in the real estate investing space, they have this tendency to think of virtual assistants as this is my way to delegate really cheap jobs to, overseas team members that get paid really, really low. And that's kind of like me getting it off my shelf and that type of thing. Where what we just talked about, I mean, if they're making the first initial contact with a lead, is that not important? Do you want that done cheaply would be the question I would have. But from a standpoint of like the way that you would treat a team member, specifically if somebody's working with REVA to hire somebody on their team to do cold calling, to do text blasting, to take calls or whatever it is, what's your piece of advice on like how to handle bringing on a team member and then managing them on your team, making them a part of your team?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't care if it's a virtual assistant, I look at them as the same as my director of ops. Yeah. I mean, you got to look at it. They are one of your team members. They are a source of, in essence, everyone in your team is a source of revenue for your company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the way we look at it. So I had a meeting today just with our whole team, not our virtual assistant team. And I say the same thing to our VA team as I do our in-house team. They listen, we only make money if you make money. It's the same thing. We only make money because we give very good bonuses to our virtual assistants. If they send in crappy leads and we don't turn them into deals, they don't make more money. So it's very, very important. We show them, we treat them very, very well. We treat them part of our team. And we do have meetings with them as well. I know you and I talked about that. I would include them in at least one weekly meeting per week. Obviously, one week. Yeah, because it allows them to feel like they're a big part of your organization, which they are. So don't forget that. I know they're overseas, but if many of people that listen to this do have virtual companies here in the United States. And if they have someone in California or in Oregon and Connecticut, they would be doing Zoom meetings just like this as well. So include them. I mean, any industry, insurance, right? A lot of these companies are all work from home still. They're not even going to the office yet. Mm-hmm. And this is what they do. It's commonplace. So include your virtual assistants on these. Let them know what's going on in your business. Let them know, the updates of any types of changes. They will love it, and they will work very, very hard for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that part of that is making sure that you're staying consistent with involving them into your team, staying engaged with them, providing, you mentioned training multiple times. You provide training to your team members, which I very wholeheartedly believe in as well, regardless of, if they're making $5 an hour, $10 an hour, $50 an hour, doesn't matter. You want them to perform well for your team because they're representing you. It's really what it comes down to. And, part of that does, include making sure that you're taking care of them and that sort of thing. And they will go to the ends of the world for you. If you provide them proper training, you treat them like they're one of your own. And like you said, communication is a really big key factor because you're not in an office with them. It's important to have very clear expectations set with them, from the time that they're working. Obviously, if they're in the Philippines and you need them cold call during the day for U.S. time, for Central time or Eastern time or whatever.
Yep.
They flex like that. Most experienced real estate investors know that. But if you're listening and you're not, involved with virtual assistants, you don't have anybody on your team, that's kind of a given. But you take care of them, act like they're part of your team, keep the communication going. You need weekly meetings, and then they're going to outperform almost anybody that even I've seen in the U.S. that would have that same position and skill set. So anyway, Bob, I think we're getting to the end of our time. I appreciate everything that you have shared, and we have a whole lot more to talk about, so we'll have to have you back on. But in parting thoughts, is there anything else from a marketing perspective that maybe is a quick tip, a little bit of a trick or some piece of advice that you would leave us with that we could take away?
I would go back to what we talked about before. It's don't be a one trick pony, and you have to set your marketing up. You talk about this all the time. It's got to be done on a consistent basis. So if you're doing direct mail, do it every Monday as an example. If you're doing cold calling, do it every day. If you do texting, do it every day. Obviously PPC, that's always up there. But everything has to be done on a consistent basis, because once it stops, we see this happen all the time with rehabbers, right? They're like, all right, I got a deal. They stop everything. They're caught up in their rehab. Before 1 month goes by, they come back. They're like, oh, well, I got no other deal. I'm done my rehab. What do I do now? Right? So it's consistency is very, very, it's the same thing with branding, right? Everything's got to be done every single day.
Yeah. And then if you come back to try to start it back up, you're basically repeating the entire process that you just worked really hard on to stay consistent for whatever time you stay consistent. So no, that's good.
Correct.
I appreciate you leaving us with that. Bob, thank you so much. For you guys, if you are interested to connect with REVA Global, Bob, so from a standpoint of if somebody's interested in bringing on maybe a team member from REVA, what's the best way to work on getting somebody, not just maybe interview, but connect with somebody on your team to learn more about working together?
Yeah, just go to our website, REVA Global, REVAglobal.com. There's a button that says strategy session. So if you want to talk to one of our team members, you can send me an email to bob@revaglobal.com, and then I'll put you in touch with the right individuals as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Guys, REVA is an extremely reputable organization, especially, this is the REI Marketing Weekly, Real Estate Investing Marketing Weekly podcast. So I'm assuming everybody that's listening is in the real estate investing space in some way, shape, or form. And REVA is a very reputable organization within this industry and very, very well known. And a lot of people in the real estate investing space use them. So make sure you go check them out. Bob, with that being said, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for being on and providing some value. And I look forward to having you back again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining and listening. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the show and make sure you leave a review if you haven't already, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We also do have large clips of these episodes that are a little bit more trimmed down and some shorter clips that go into shorts on our YouTube channel, so you can go check that out as well. Everything will be linked down in the description below, including some of the links that Bob had mentioned and ways to connect with him. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.